All right, guys. So we're going to walk through the Tone Up, Shred Down, and Get Swole project, also known as your personal training project. And we're going to be looking at this example project that I shared with everybody, and I'm going to highlight the parts that I really want you to do. And I'm going to talk about maybe some parts that you can skip. But I'm also going to explain kind of like what you have to do in order to get credit for this project. All right, because there were a lot of steps. We were working on this like every single day in class, trying to build it piece by piece by piece. Focused a lot on one priority after the other, and you're taking notes on that. That was several months ago. So I'm going to have to go over a lot of material here that I want you to have in your project. We're going to try to do it quick. All right, so let's start with this. Let's go to, let's talk about what are the two things you have to do. So I want to remind you that this project is about synthesis. Synthesis is your habit of mind that we're practicing here. So why is building a personal training project valuable? What qualifies that as science? Well, what it comes down to is the fact that you're having to take all these competing priorities and issues that are all important in designing a training program, and you're having to fit them together at the same time. All right. And so what I'm going to do is review with you the things that I want you to be thinking about and looking at. And then we're going to go to the project and we're going to talk about how you plug all that stuff in so that you show me you're doing what you're supposed to do. All right. So knowing that synthesis is all about having these competing things and fitting them together into a consistent whole, what we want to start with is, what are the parts? Well, the first thing we're going to pay attention to, this is like our foundation down here, is your client's goals. All right, so everything that you do, everything that you talk about needs to start in the foundation of your client's goals. Now, you might slightly modify your client's goals. You might say, hey, before you get to that, we're going to work on this. But you got to be really clear about that. If you are going to make any changes, if you're going to look at them and their training history and their age and their weight and stuff like that, and you're going to make different recommendations, you got to make it clear, hey, yes, I know you want to lose weight, but I already recognize, this and this and this. So we're going to focus here, and then we'll move in that direction. Okay, so level one, the absolute foundation of this is goals. Sorry, I had to smash a spider there for a second. I apologize. All right, so the next level, the next thing we're going to think about is meeting their goals as a personal trainer is going to come down to two different things. It's going to come down to exercise and nutrition. Okay. And so we're going to be breaking our project up into things that focus on exercise and things that focus on nutrition. But remember, we're starting with our goals. When we're talking about exercise, okay, the first thing we're going to be focusing on with exercise is your total, the first thing we're going to focus on with exercise is your movements. All right, so we're going to be focusing on movements. And we're going to focus on push, pull, squat, and hinge were our categories, okay? You may have examples that I gave you of those different movements, examples of how that works. You may not. That you might have to go to Google for that, but we're going to start there. After we've kind of laid out our movements, our next question is volume. Okay, volume is number of sets. How much work are you doing in each of those movements? Okay, after we focus on volume, we then have to think about intensity and reps, because those go together. You can't just like decide one and not think about the other. They also are direct, and keep in mind, these are also directly related to volume and directly related to movement and directly related to their goals. So you can't necessarily just decide one without thinking about the others. That's what makes this synthesis. But this is kind of the order we're going to think about them, knowing we have to sometimes go back and make changes. And then our very last thing we're going to think about, which in some ways is the most important. So this isn't like a priority list necessarily. This is just the order we're going to talk about them. Our very last one is progression. Okay, because exercise should progress. It should become more and more challenging over time, especially for specific goals. And how we progress depends on the goals you have. How we do intensity depends on the goals you have. How we do volume depends on the goals you have. It's all about integrating these things, and that's what I'm looking for when I'm grading your project. Did you talk about all that, and did you integrate it together into something that makes sense? Over here on nutrition, our number one thing we're going to talk about is calories. Okay, just how much food are you eating? Our number two thing we're going to think about is macros, macronutrients. So that is protein, carbs, and fat. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is progression again, because even diets follow a progression. As we're doing our exercise progression, our diet progression is going to change. It's not necessarily smart to throw somebody into the deep end of a diet right away and expect them to make massive changes. They will probably see tremendous benefits, but they will probably also give up very quickly. All right, so we're expecting to see all of these things everywhere. I just want to remind you, in our workshop, we spent, a day or two on every single one of these categories, building them together. So if you have your notes from the workshop, then there's a good chance that you'll have some resources that you can use to help with that. If you need extra explanation with some of these things, then you can, send me a message or ask me, and I can go into more detail about one of them. But I am going to talk about all of them briefly right now. Okay. So let's go back to the project and let's talk about how we would actually set this up in order to, meet all of those requirements. All right, make myself a little bit bigger here. Okay, so you've got your client information. Hopefully you have information about your clients. If you don't, you can let me know. I will send you either new client information or see if I can find your client information. Okay. The very first thing that we want to complete is our nutritional program overview. And what this nutritional program overview is going to think about is it's going to think about first calories, then macros, and then to some extent, it's going to think about progression. How do we do that? Well, we're going to go into our website that we used, which was freedieting.com. If you don't have this information written down or you don't remember it, then you can go to freedieting.com. You're going to go to this website. Man, it's a giant ad. You're going to go to the macro calculator right here. And what's weird is we're going to go to another website first, probably, because we're going to try to figure out our macros, but first we need to know our calories. So let's say we've got a client who is 23, male, weighs 220 pounds, and he's 6'2". And we're going to go ahead and click calculate, and we're going to look at the exercise. Well, it's going to give us some calorie ideas, and it's going to recommend 2,839 as like maintenance, just keeping your calories the same. Let's say this person wants to lose weight, so they want to go 2,271 calories. Okay, that is our estimate of where we want to be. Just because that's an estimate and like an ideal doesn't mean that's what we're going to plug in, but we'll come back to that. So 2271, we are going to go back to the macro calculator now. We're going to throw that in. We're usually going to start at this zone diet number, 40, 30, 30. That gives us a good start. We have calories, protein, and fat. Okay, this is a great example of, so we figured out our calories and we used the goal to help us decide what calorie number to go with. Now we're looking at our macros, but we're also going to use the goal to think about our macros. Do we need to adjust this number in order to, work better for that person? Typically, carbohydrates are going to be basically fuel for exercise. So the more exercise this person is doing, the more we might find a need to raise that. Maybe this person is a marathon runner, and so we want to trade. Maybe we need, or maybe they participate in a really intense sport, like they're like a college soccer player. They might need to go up a little bit in their carbohydrates and maybe take that from their fats. Okay, so that would be a modification showing synthesis where we're changing our numbers. Maybe they are a bodybuilder. They want to put on a bunch of muscle, or they want to at least make sure they maintain a bunch of muscle. So then maybe I want to raise their protein, but lower their carbohydrate. They're not doing a lot of endurance activities. They're not doing a lot of running. They are, however, trying to build muscle, generally speaking. Or maybe they're just a normal person hanging out, and they just don't need a ton of energy from carbohydrates. We're going to move that maybe into the fat area. Okay, so you can adjust carbohydrate based on sort of intensity of endurance exercise usually, and you can adjust protein based on how much they're focused on muscle building or muscle maintenance. But we can also just, we're using 40, 30, 30 as our starting point. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and click calculate. And it's going to give us this, the grams per day. That's what I need. So what we ended up for this person was 170 carbs, 170 protein, 170 fat. All right, that's totally reasonable. Now we're going to go back to the project and we're going to think about adding that information. So that is all going to go in the nutritional program overview. Here's how I'm going to do it. I am going to add in, just going to give myself some notes really quick. So I'm going to go calories, 2,270. I'm going to go carbs, 170, protein, 170, fats. And that is the essential information that I need to put in there. But the other essential, and you saw like I had an example paragraph there that really kind of walked through it as if I was talking to the client. This is the basic information you need to give. But the other information that you need to add is you also need to add information about why you made those decisions. So how did you pick the calorie? Right? You want to say, I picked your maintenance calories would have been about 2,800. I'm going to drop that down to 500 because we want to be lower in calories to help you burn fat, because that was your goal, right? You have to say that. We're showing synthesis. You're showing you're doing the thinking. The next thing you would want to do then is why, it should be like how and why. How and why did you adjust the macros? Okay, what was going on there? You made changes. What were they? Why did you make them? Okay, and then the last thing we should think about, because it's at the peak of our list here, is our progression. Okay, so I want you to talk about, yes, maybe 2,270 calories is the ideal, But maybe what we want to do is just focus on one thing. Maybe you want to focus on, we're going to start by writing down all your food and figuring out how many calories you are eating. And then you're going to start dropping your calories by 200 every week until you get to 2,270. Or maybe we're going to focus on, you're really focused on muscle. And so we're going to really make sure we get that protein number. We're going to look at the protein you're eating right now. And I want you to start raising your protein by 25 grams a week until you get to 170. And then we'll start tracking your carbohydrates, or then we'll start tracking your calories to make sure you're getting enough food. There needs to be progression in there so that we're understanding how people work. The other thing is progression shows me your synthesis. It's because it's related to their goals, right? If I'm focusing on weight loss, then I'm probably going to focus on progressing their calories because I know they're probably eating too much and I want to pull the calories back. If they're focused on building muscle, then I'm going to be progressing their protein because that's so important. It really depends on the person, okay? And it depends on now on the flip side, okay, just to throw this out there, if you have someone who's like a really, really elite athlete, maybe they don't need as much progression. They're used to probably dieting. They probably eat well already, and they're probably willing to go really hard, and they have that discipline where you maybe could just throw them into it. Okay, so these are things to think about. You gotta think about your client, think about their goals, and plan these things out, all right? So that's kind of the first part you're gonna work on. This is actually gonna take the place of all this work. So this column M here, I'm actually just gonna delete it. You don't need to do any of that work if the nutritional program overview is good. Okay, so it's one change that we are making to the plan. Okay. The other change we're going to make, so now we're going to talk about the training program overview. Okay, and we're going to talk about this looking at the same things. So our categories we're looking at exercise, we're going to be thinking about movements, volume, intensity and reps, and progression. I'm going to write this out in a different way than I did the nutritional program because I am not going to complete the training program first. The first thing I'm going to do is actually dive down here and start inputting their program. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of all of this, and I'm going to use this space right here just for a second to make myself some notes, or maybe I'm going to make some notes over here. It doesn't really matter. So I'm going to use this space to make some notes. We're going to start with movements. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about push, pull, squat. Okay, I'm going to write that down to make sure that I have all my movements accounted for. And I'm going to write down what is my push, what is my pull, what is my squat, and what is my hinge. Just to make sure we understand these things, a push is any movement where you are pushing, right? You could be pushing up, you could be pushing out, so it could be push-ups, bench press, dumbbell press, overhead press. It could be handstand push-ups, you're like standing on your head. Even dips, you're pushing down, right, in dips. All of those things are a push. Your hands are starting close to your body and moving further away. That's what a push is, all right? So I'm gonna start this person with overhead press. That's kind of a weird choice, and that's why I picked it, because I don't think it's necessarily what you should do. All right, so I'll pick something else. And then we're gonna work on pull, all right? So a pulling movement is anything where your hands are starting far away from you and moving closer to you, all right? So we can do rows, we can do pull downs, we can do chin-ups. We've got all kinds of things. I'm gonna do a bent over row, okay? Like a bent over dumbbell row, sometimes called a croc row. Here, I'm just gonna write a croc row. So much easier. Just like lean on a bench, grab a dumbbell in one hand and pull it toward your body. All right, that's what a croc row is. Technically, it's usually heavy. What makes it a croc row? Little different technique. Doesn't matter. I'm going to throw that in there. I don't want to see croc row on yours. So there you go. That's why I'm picking it. And then a squat is any movement. You know what a squat looks like, right? But it's officially a squat movement is any movement where your hip and your knee are bending a lot. Okay, so you're bending a lot at the hip and the knee. So this could be squats, it could be step ups, it could be lunges, it could be leg press. All right, anything where the hip and the knee are bending a lot. I am going to do another weird one. I'm going to do box jumps. Depending on how you do box jumps, these might not be a squat movement, but whatever, we'll just do it. Or here, I'm going to do belt squat. Belt squat is a really weird one where you like stand on this machine or on two boxes and you hang a weight from your hips and you do squats, whatever, belt squat. And then a hinge is a movement where you're hinging. So you're like, here's your hips right here. And it's just really your hips that are moving. Okay. Knees pretty much staying straight. There's usually a little bit of bend in the knee like that with a hinge, but mostly you're bending at the hips. This is a deadlift. This is a kettlebell swing. This is a clean. This is a snatch, whatever movement you're looking for. I'm going to go for the power clean. Again, probably not something you would use, but just taking a barbell and basically lifting it up quickly. All right, from the ground. All right, so these are my movements. I now have a push, a pull, a squat, and a hinge. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at volume. Okay, volume is my next thing. It is the number of sets. Okay, so when we're thinking about volume, we need to realize that there is this kind of hierarchy of how volume works. Okay, so this here is the number of sets. Okay, and over here, we're going to have muscle growth, okay, on our y-axis. If we are focusing on muscle growth, we want to know that as we increase the number of sets, there is an increase in muscle growth up to a point where it starts to slow down. Never really falls off based on the most recent research, and in fact, technically continues to go up forever according to the most recent research, studies that were published just even the last year or so. The magic number here where muscle growth, it's actually a little bit, I apologize, it's a little bit more like this. It's a little more of a COVID-19 kind of thing. So this magic number where all of a sudden muscle growth starts to really ramp up to this other magic number where muscle growth starts to kind of level off. This is 10 sets to 20 sets. Now it is technically a lot more complicated than this, but this is just the very basic idea. So for a movement, and we're just talking about like push, right? For a movement category, push or pull or squat or hinge, we're looking at if you really want to optimize muscle growth. Okay, so this is growth. You want to be in this 10 to 20 range. Okay, now if you are trying to do a lot of endurance in sort of strength training capacity, which I'm going to be honest, very few people do, then you might be over this 20 sets. Or this could be like a really extreme, like high level bodybuilder who's just maximizing muscle growth, probably also with the use of synthetic hormones like testosterone and, steroids. If you are trying to develop, now if you're going to be down here, you're going to be developing strength if you are going heavy. So if you're lifting heavy weights and you want to stay down here, because anything up here is going to really blow you up, you're going to run out of energy and probably get injured. So you want to stay in this range for strength. Or if you're trying to be just sort of maintaining. In fact, a lot of research shows that you could probably maintain if you're just only doing maybe 2 or 3 sets a week. Okay, so you got to decide, what does your client need? Do they need to be doing a bunch of muscle growth? Do they need to be building strength? Are they maintaining? Are they new to training? Are they really experienced with training where they want to be over here? Are they doing just super lightweight, like crunches and stuff? Well, okay, maybe they're in this area. So what we're going to do is we're going to determine what is our volume. And so this person that I was talking about is doing kind of a fat loss program. And so I'm going to determine, I'm going to pick a number. Muscle growth is not super important for them, so I'm probably not going to be at like 20. They're also relatively new, so I want them to be over here. But for fat loss, I want them to do a lot of sets, so it's this kind of trade-off. How do we make, this is a lot of stuff we have to figure out. This is synthesis, okay? What I'm going to decide is I'm going to decide that I want them in this range around 10 sets, because some muscle growth is not bad, especially when you're trying to do fat loss. But I'm probably going to start them lower and build them up because they're new and we're focusing on progression. Okay, so I'm going to start them at, let's say, 5 sets. And it's going to be 5 sets for push, 5 sets for pull, 5 sets for squat, 5 sets for hinge. Okay, now, are they going to stay there? No. All right, but we'll talk about that in a second. So we've got our movements, we've got our volume. We're going to think about our intensity and reps now. Okay, so this is my chart for volume. I'm also going to need to think about sets and reps. All right, so if we're thinking about the intensity, we're going to be thinking about intensity as percentage. 100% intensity is the heaviest weight you can possibly lift. Your number of reps for that is going to be 1, because you can only do it once. That's what makes it 100%. Okay? If we're going to be doing multiple reps, we're going to be dropping this down. So for example, the general rule is that for like 3 reps, the most we could do is 95%. So we're going to go less than 95%. This is a maximal effort. You probably don't want them here all the time. They will die. They will get injured and they will die. They won't actually die, but they'll get injured. For 5 reps, you're going to be less than 90%. Okay? For 10 reps, am I doing this right? No, sorry, I apologize. Nope, this is 2, 3. General wisdom is 85% is 5 reps, so less than 85%. 80% is going to be like 10 reps. And then we continue raising the reps as we go down. And I'm going to kind of jump a little bit. So we can go all the way down to like 60% is usually more like 20 reps. Okay, so you've got a big range here, but we're going to talk about why you would do that, why you'd be in that range. Okay, this area up here, this area, from 100% to about 85%, that's strength. You're getting stronger by lifting those weights. And actually that does go down to 80%, sorry, there we go. These reps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are good reps for strength. These percentages around the 80s, okay? Anywhere from 80 down to 60 and anywhere from 10 to 20 reps, we're building muscle. We're either building muscle or we're maintaining muscle, okay? Now, who needs to build strength? Some athletes, some people that are just starting. I personally am a big fan of starting with low reps. Now, if you got somebody who's brand new, you're not going to be like, well, yeah, we're doing 1 rep at 100%. They might do 1 rep. They might they're probably going to need more reps and lower percentages. You want to stay down here. They might do 5 reps at like a 70% effort. You might even be below this, but your goal is we're going to try to get there. So we're going to try to raise this up. So a lot of the time, new people do need to start by focusing on raising their intensity, raising their weights until they get close to a hard effort, and then they can start focusing on muscle because we're really moving something. Other people that are really focused on muscle like to stay in here. The other nice thing about this is you're doing a lot of work. You're doing a lot of reps, 10, 20 reps. You're lifting technically way more weight here than you are here. And so this can also be really good for fat loss. Both because building muscle helps you burn fat, and also because they're just doing a lot of work. So if the weight on the bar isn't important for us, if we already have the technique, we might live here. A lot of the time, most people are going to switch back and forth. They're going to do some strength work. They're going to do some muscle work at different times of the year. That's where progression comes in. All right, this person is new. I'm going to start them with relatively low reps. Like I said, I'm going to go 5 reps so that they can start practicing, and I'm going to go 70% because I know that's not hard, right? Like 5 reps, you can do 85%. So I'm going to go in on 15% from that. This should not be hard, but they're new. I'm trying to be gentle to them. All right. So now I've got, looking at my hierarchy over here, I've got my movements, my volume, my intensity and reps. All I need to think about now is progression. So my question then becomes, how am I progressing this person? What are we building? Are we adding more reps because I want to get them closer to that muscle building thing? Are we raising the weight because I want to get them stronger? Are we putting on, are we doing harder movements? Okay, there's a lot of options here. I'm going to do multiple, I'm probably going to do multiple progressions for this person, but you don't usually want to progress more than, you probably want to progress one thing week to week, and then maybe something else from mesocycle to mesocycle. All right, this person I said was focused on losing weight. So what I really want to get them doing is maybe more work. So my progression, I'm going to progress the sets, and then so this is a progression I really like to do myself. So what I'm going to do is exactly that. Okay. So here we go. Now I'm going to actually build. So I've got my notes here. I've figured it out. I'm going to actually build this week. So it's really simple. This is only 4 movements and 5 sets. They can totally do this. I'm going to grab overhead press. I'm going to put it on like Tuesday. I'm going to go overhead press. And I'm going to say 5 sets. They're going to do all 5 sets on that day. Just so you know, it's totally reasonable to do 5 to 10 sets on a given day. Once you start doing more than 10 sets of a movement on a day, it's getting real rough. So you would start wanting to maybe, once you get close to 10 sets in a day, you break it up. Or if you're doing a bunch of different movements, break it up. That's another thing too, is if you've got the same thing, like you're pushing on multiple days of the week, you probably want to do different movements. We'll see that. All right, so I've got 5 sets. I'm going to do 5 reps. We're going to do 5 reps, and we're going to go 70%. See that? So that is their recommendation. I'm also going to do squat on that day, so we'll do belt squat. 5 sets, 5 reps, 70%. Okay, then I'm going to go to Thursday. That's going to be croc row. 5 sets, 5 reps, 70%. 5 sets, 5 reps, 70%. Okay. So I don't really need this anymore. I'm going to go ahead and grab these things, just move them up just to make it look prettier. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my next week. All right. And delete these guys. Here's the magic. You just grab this, copy it, paste it into week 2. You're not doing anything dramatically different. You're going to go to week 3, paste it into week 3. Okay? I'm going to go to week 4, paste it into week 4. I'm not going to go further than that because that's 4 weeks in a row of doing similar things. And what we want our progression to look like is this. Whatever you decide you're going to progress, you want your progression to look like this. Okay, so you want to go up, 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 make it slightly easier in some way to give a little bit of rest and recovery. A lot of the times, this is actually when your performance or your muscle or whatever actually rebounds because your body has a little more energy to change. And now you're going to go stronger, 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 a little bit easier, harder, 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 a little bit easier. Okay? Ultimately ending way above where we started. All right, so what does that look like? Well, I am going to raise my sets. So I did 5 sets the first week. I'm going to choose to do 6 sets the second week. Same reps. If there's I think there's a good chance because this person is so new that I could actually raise the weight still if I wanted to. I'm not going to do that in this case, but that is an option because this is actually going to get pretty spicy. All right, so that is kind of the way we're going to structure our progression. When I get to the next mesocycle, that's my hint. Okay, now I need to do something different. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make some changes. They're going to be all the way up to 3 sets here. And I'm going to drop them down, probably like maybe drop just down to 7 sets. I'll probably raise the weight. I'll probably change the movements. So now things need to change, all right? Once you've done all of that, you've filled out all that information, you're going to come back up to your training program overview. And once again, you're going to write out your basic information. And you're going to describe to me what volume are they doing and why? Like, why did you pick that? What kind of intensity, what kind of reps, why did you pick that? What is the progression? Why did you pick that? So you're fully explaining it there. These training notes over here, you can skip, all right? So once you've got your example training program, your nutritional program overview, your training program overview, and you're showing me how you're putting all these things together to meet your client's goal in a reasonable way, your project's done, all right? This is not easy. That's why we're working on it together. I'm sorry that you guys are having to do it without a ton of help, but here we are. Let me know if I can be helpful in any way.